Before you watch House of the Dragon finale, remember something very simple. Those dragons doesn't exist, and somehow we become so used to them that we barely notice how insanely detailed and realistic it is. House of the Dragon Season 3 has pushed the dragon work even further with major VFX contributions from famous VFX studios. The production involves everything from previs, practical rigs to animation, environments, effects, lighting, and finally compositing. The dragons weren't even the hardest part. The production built a huge virtual production setup at Warner Bros. Using a roughly 270-degree LED volume that could create almost full 360-degree environment. And they weren't just using it for pretty backgrounds. They had rain, smoke, fire, flame bars, motion platforms, all happening around the actors while LED environment was running behind them. And that creates a very weird VFX problem. You want the physical effects to interact with the actors and environment, but you also have thousands of LED panels sitting right there. For VFX artists, this is the interesting part. Virtual production isn't simply put a giant LED wall behind the actor. It's a combination of cinematography, practical effects, virtual environments, lighting, camera movement, and post production, all combining in the same frame. That is why I find how House of the Dragon is interesting. Foundry is pushing its multi-shot compositing workflow built around grab scope variables and enabled workflows. The idea is to allow one Nuke script to manage multiple shot context with variable controlling what changes between shots. So instead of duplicating the setup, you can build a shot family that let individual shots inherit or override what they need. Foundry's own documentation describes graph scope variable as the backbone of multi-shot workflows. This matters enormously for large sequence that has similar angles. I actually think this is one of the important changes happening inside Nuke because future of compositing isn't necessarily one artist, one script, one shot. It's one artist, one system managing an entire sequence. And here is the interesting one. A major VFX studio behind Dune is adopting Foundry's Hiero in editorial workflows. And my first reaction is cool, Foundry Hiero. The studio is expanding its use of Hiero for editorial workflows, pushing the Foundry ecosystem further upstream into editorial and production. And there is an interesting wrinkle here. The same studio has already built an open sourced new software called xSTUDIO, a playback and review platform designed around production review and media workflows. xSTUDIO is already used internally at scale and was open sourced to Academy Software Foundation. So why bring Hero in the picture? Because editorial, review, shot management, and compositing are increasingly become one connected pipeline. The less you jump between disconnected tools, the less production informs get lost. This is where I think Foundry strategy gets interesting. Nuke isn't just competing to the best compositor anymore. The bigger game is, can Foundry build an operating system around a compositor, editorial, shot management, review, compositing, and automation. There is something hilarious and depressing happening on the social media. Fake AI generated behind the scene videos are getting million views. Meanwhile, real VFX artists are working 10 to 12 hours a day, sometimes even weekends, creating shots for Hollywood films, and most people will never know their names. Think about it. One artist spends 8 hours of removing tracker markers, paint outing rigs, rotoscoping hair, matching grain, and fixing reflections, making the shot completely invisible. And another creator spends an evening generating an AI behind the scenes of Avengers clips. The original breakdown reaches few hundred peoples, but the other reaches 5 million. Is that fair? Yeah, maybe not, but social media has never rewarded for effort. It rewards for curiosity because they think they are seeing something exclusive. They comment, is this real? They share it friends. The algorithm doesn't know whether a video took 20 minutes or 200 hours to create. It only knows that people keep watching the same video again and again. I think there is an important lesson here. As VFX artists, we become incredibly good at creating images, but we never really learned how to package those images to social media. The AI creators who are succeeding aren't necessarily a VFX artist. Many of them simply better at grabbing attentions. And that's the irony. because we probably have the skills to create even better viral AI content. We just haven't playing the same game yet. After Effects just got faster at tracking mask without sounds boring. Until you realize Adobe is slowly turning After Effects into something much closer to a proper 3D compositing environment. After Effects 26.3 adds several interesting features. Depth of field in the advanced 3D render, editable Illustrator and SVG content as a natural shape layers, mask tracking that Adobe says can be up to 5 times faster, and copy films to clipboard, and a new curl noise effect, and a collection of fixes and workflows improvements. Honestly, Adobe is playing the long game. Nuke has traditionally owned high-end node-based compositing. After Effects owned motion graphics, but the line between those worlds keep getting blurrier. And if Adobe keeps adding 3D tracking, AI procedural effects, and compositing features, eventually somebody is going to ask why I am paying for 3 different tools to make one shot. And that question makes every compositing software slightly nervous. IllusionFX is a GPU accelerated compositing application being developed as a subscription free alternative. The developer says it supports node based compositing, timeline, 32-bit floating processing, open color EVO, multi channel EXR, local AI roto tracking 50 plus FX, and a plugin SDK. It is targeting Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. The recent Reddit post announcing its progress and received hundreds of upvotes. The interesting part is, will IllusionFX replace Nuke in upcoming years? Probably not. But the interesting part is, building a serious compositor is much more accessible. GPUs are faster, open standards are everywhere, AI can handle parts of the compositing workflow, and modern UI frameworks makes development much easier. Example, vibe coding. So Nuke isn't dying next few years, but monopoly mentality should be dying, because once artists have alternates, software companies have to compete on performance, workflow, price, UX, and actual innovation. Imagine spending hundreds of millions for making a movie and then promoting it with AI generated content. Warner Bros. Is currently promoting the end of Oak Street, which opens August 14. And this week, a Warner Bros. Related AI promotional piece featuring AI generated dog podcast triggered a strong reaction online. The movie itself, a large scale sci fi production in a suburban neighborhood being transported into an unknown environment. Studios are experimenting with AI not just for production, they are testing it for marketing, trailers, social content, audience engagement, and promotional campaign. And this is where Hollywood's hypocrisy means delicious. The industry spends years of telling artists we need to protect the authenticity of filmmaking. I'm not against AI. We can use it, experiment with it, but don't pretend replacing a creative production process and a generated content is automatically innovation. MiniMax released H3 as a multi-modal video generation capable of understanding text, image, video, and audio. The company says MiniMax H3 can generate up to 50 seconds 2K video with native stereo audio and supports multi-modal editing and video to video motion transfer. Most importantly, for the open source community, Minimax announced plans to release its model weights. And within days, the community was already experimenting with local inference and ComfyAI workflows. This changes the economics. If a powerful video generation moves closer to artist workstation, experimentation becomes cheaper and more private. You can start thinking about local previews, concept development, matte painting, motion test, play augmentation, reference generation for compositing, and eventually production element library. And this part is people underestimate. Cloud AI is expensive. Local AI gets cheaper every year because GPUs are getting faster. So the future may not be AI company sells you access for a magic website. It could be AI just another thing installed on your workstation, just like Nuke, Photoshop, Houdini. Once AI become infrastructure instead of website, things get really interesting. We spent the last few years asking, can AI generate realistic video or audio or image? And much scariest question for compositors is, can AI learn how to composite two images? That's the idea behind FlexComposer. It's a research system for generative video compositing. You can take a static image or dynamic footage, place it in an existing video while controlling where it moves, foreground representation, and spatial aware latent injection, and a hybrid training dataset designed to learn things like realistic motion, lighting, and shadow integration. Think about the traditional comp workflow: track, roto, transform, integration, edge work, motion blur, defocus, shade, lighting, shadow. Here we hear the VFX industry is recovering. So, where are the actual jobs? There are definitely signs of activities. Major VFX studios has advertised roles across compositing, effects, lighting, animation, production, and multiple locations including India, Canada, UK, Australia. Ireland has also recently strengthened its VFX tax incentive with enhanced tax credit on a qualifying VFX expenditure. So there is work, but artist experience is much messier. Recent discussions in VFX professionals still describe limited job posting, uneven workflows, and market where some studios are busy while others are struggling. The recovery isn't uniform. Some locations are hiring, some departments are busy. Senior artists are getting opportunities, and juniors are still getting absolutely hammered by job market. So here's my take. VFX is recovering, but I don't think we are going back to the old VFX industry. That part people don't want to say. The new version will probably have smaller teams, more automation, more outsourcing, more tax driven production, more AI assisted workflows, and higher expectation per artist. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to topicroomvfx.com.